outweighed by more crime and other social problems. Stephen Sacker has been to the Navajo reservation on the Arizona-New Mexico border.
The annual gathering of the Navajo tribe, a celebration of their survival in the American West. There are 550 Native American tribes. The Navajo is the biggest. The tribe faces a thoroughly modern dilemma. Should it embrace gambling and the casino culture in a bid to overcome grinding rural poverty? In Arizona, several Indian tribes already make big profits from gambling. They operate slot machines banned elsewhere in the state. In an historic reversal, the white man's resources are being exploited. Pro-gambling campaigners are hard at work on the Navajo reservation. They say thousands of jobs will come with the casinos.
We're living in a white man's society, so there's no changing in that. We just need to get in there and get involved, and then we need to support ourselves and our habits.
But tribal leaders desperate to preserve the separate, distinct culture of the Navajo, the basis of continued claims to sovereignty, see casinos as a danger. Other tribes have suffered from gambling-related organized crime and social problems.
If we do go into that, we have to be ready to meet those type of challenges to make sure that our culture doesn't get diminished and become secondary, and that something new comes in that will diminish our culture.
Many Navajo Indians are ready to embrace any promise of a better life. Nationally, more than 1/3 of all Native American families are living below the poverty line. Being separate has meant being cut off from the motors of U.S. economic growth. The decision on gambling has split the Navajo Nation down the middle. The temptation of much-needed cash for the reservation is obvious, but it's balanced by the fear of new social problems and the loss of the Navajo's historic claim to independence. Senator Slade Gorton is one Washington politician who believes Native Americans must change to survive. He's pushing legislation to limit their special legal privileges and cut their federal funds if they make gambling profits.
This special status and this 2 centuries-long welfare program has done individual Indians very little good. They have the lowest educational attainments, the highest shares of unemployment, the worst health. That's at least in part because of this special status and this welfare system.
The Navajo's ability to hang on to their separate identity faces a stiff challenge. Gambling might allow controlled modernization, or it might rob the tribe of the things that bind it together. Stephen Sacker, BBC News, on the Navajo reservation.
Now back to the Queen's visit to India. The government insists it's been a tremendous success, but the Conservatives have accused the Foreign Secretary of blundering and of lack of tact on the issue of Kashmir.
1,000 cases of heart disease. Researchers also found children whose parents smoke are inhaling the equivalent of 2 or 3 cigarettes a week. Entertainer Roy Castle died of lung cancer 3 years ago. He didn't smoke, but often played in smoky clubs. His widow told me today's research will spur on action against passive smoking.
Obviously, Roy would have taken avoidance action. If he'd known that smoking was going to kill him, you wouldn't go into an asbestos-filled room now, would you? Because you know the dangers, but smoking is far more dangerous than that.
A big supporter of the Roy Castle Foundation is Terry Kavanagh, who had lung cancer 8 years ago. He didn't smoke, but his wife Anne did.
And obviously I do feel partly to blame anyway, you know, which is, I'm bound to feel like that. But when we were younger, smoking was encouraged.
I think there should be a total ban on smoking in public places, considering of the awareness programme that's gone on and the evidence that's coming out. It's not only causing cancer, it's causing heart disease.
Lawyer Martin Day, who represents smokers in their legal action against tobacco companies, says today's research will mean more court cases.
Employers throughout the length and breadth of the land, I think, will be warned as a result of this study that if they have any area in their workplace that is where people can smoke, there is a real, very, very real risk that they will have legal action taken against them.
The tobacco companies attack the validity of the findings on passive smoking.
The World Health Organization is currently doing research exactly on this issue. Their first results appeared in July from Sweden, and they found no increase in risk that was meaningful.
That, however, will cut little ice with the government, which plans a new crackdown on smoking later this year. Lawrence McGinty, News at 10.
30 years after his execution, the Marxist guerrilla leader Che Guevara was given a hero's funeral today. His remains, which were discovered in a mass grave in Bolivia earlier this year, were laid to rest in a specially built mausoleum in communist Cuba. The Cuban president, Fidel Castro, called Guevara an inspiration and a prophet. Caroline Kerr reports.
It was the final homecoming for Cuba's most famous adopted son, the last journey for Che Guevara and the comrades who died with him. Whether through obligation or through their own choice, hundreds of thousands of Cubans turned out to honor the revolutionary fighter who became an icon of the left.
Para salvar la revolución.
Cuba's President Fidel Castro led the tributes to the man who fought with him in the country's communist revolution. Che Guevara was an Argentinian doctor, but he became Castro's lieutenant during Cuba's revolution. He was executed in Bolivia after leading an abortive mission there in 1967. His burial, after a solemn funeral ceremony, was clearly intended by Cuba's communist leadership to revive the popularity of the one-party socialist system, which has struggled to survive since the breakup of the Soviet Union. The president himself has seized on the anniversary of Che Guevara's death to try to rekindle the idealism of the country's revolutionary days. Caroline Kerr, News at 10.
The government's proposals aimed at preventing trouble during next year's marching season in northern